Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting and life-changing edition of Faces of Resilience. I'm actually coming to you live from the sunny Arizona. Yeah, I am in Arizona right now. I have to remember because I don't live here, but it's absolutely wonderful to be able to actually travel right now. And of course, our special guest is actually in a beautiful place, Pismo Beach. Is that am I saying it correctly?
Yeah,
In
Pismo
California.
Beach. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so we'd like to welcome all of you to Faces of Resilience. This is the Top Talent JV edition because we are actually spotlighting the people, the amazing people that we meet through this unbelievably wonderful um, forum and platform called the Top Talent. And one of my special friends that I have met through that platform, of course, is a relationship coach. And he has been married to his beautiful wife Valerie for over 33 years, and oftentimes, nothing is really a bed of roses, right? And oftentimes, when you have a business and a personal relationship that you're looking to nurture, it gets a little bit tricky sometimes, and you're sometimes you would like to set each other on fire. And so, you know, instead of butting heads, how do you begin to create a beautiful balance and ignite the fire within your marriage, despite the different challenging times that we're having right now? Because when business is not doing so well because of the challenges, the limitations that we have, oftentimes we take on each other our frustrations. And so today we are going to actually get the nuggets of wisdom from relationship coach, my good friend Mike Stewart. Hello.
Hi, Curly. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you have a beautiful color. It looks like you've been enjoying outdoors, right?
Oh, yeah. I do some volunteer work at a local college here during the week, so I get a lot of sun.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's beautiful that aside from your business, you still get to give, serve a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, actually, this is a very juicy topic that we have right now because the pandemic forced so many couples, obviously, to spend as more time with each other at home. And oftentimes you're not used to being in each other's face 24/7. And it magnifies the differences that you may have. And you also go through different challenges that this pandemic has brought upon us. So what kind of challenges are you seeing right now amongst married couples who may be in a business together?
Well, a lot of times what it is, first of all, it's financial stress. And, when my wife and we were running our own business about 10 years ago, there was a lot of financial stress, but we didn't know how to talk about it because we would
Mhm.
just get angry and fight. And we had customers in our business and things like that. So what I did was I learned some tools that helped me realize that it's not my wife's fault we're in a financial stress. It's our fault. It's a team effort. And so we decided that we would work on things together and get a plan together to take care of that financial stress. But I used to blame my wife for a lot of that financial stress. And then I came to realize that, she's doing the best that she can with what she has. And I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. But when we learn different things that help us, I can't help but share them with other people. And that's why I'm here today. And that's why I do what I do. Last year, when I realized that families, not just the parents, but the kids, were suffering so much through this pandemic and not knowing how to talk about it, that's the thing that I wanted to do, was be able to give married couples tools to be able to talk to each other and talk to their kids so that they can get all these things, these little dramas that go on in our head, out of the way, and put things on the table and make things real so that they can really have an opportunity to solve the problem.
It's very interesting because I'm actually also part of the divorce dynasty, and I do have a podcast. Well, in that forum, the divorce dynasty, we are actually all vetted professionals in this field of divorce, and the divorce rates have spiked, and also the cases of domestic violence have also gone up during this pandemic. And so many people are either in other extramarital relationships, and oftentimes they miss their paramour, and also there are some people who are now reconsidering actually working their marriage, and but in the meantime they also have already filed for divorce. They're going to go through different stages of their
Yeah.
lives. So what kind of drama that's for real that you're seeing right now that people can relate to?
So the drama that's for real is, I mean, you might have you and your spouse might have different political opinions,
Mm,
and so that's another issue that. But again, we go from a standpoint of blaming one another or trying to force our viewpoint on the other person rather than having an open dialogue of, well, why do you feel that way, and begin to understand why that's there, rather than just going, well, your candidate's this or that. Um, and it just reminds me of what's happening right now is, our country is still in a, mask, no mask. And, my wife kind of gets upset with me because I don't want to wear a mask anymore. And so she shares that with me, and I explain to her why. And we just respect that. And so the goal is to understand your spouse has different backgrounds than you do, and there's different triggers that she's going to experience when something happens.
agree to disagree. You
Agree to
know,
disagree, but also have compassion for those triggers that she's experiencing, because it could be something a parent said or did that's triggering and that's running in the background, that's causing even more fear than that's actually there. And so by
that's very
recognizing that.
interesting. Yeah, that the programming that we've had from our culture and whatever the society has really embedded upon us, actually we carry it through. It's very interesting because politics and religion are really very touchy subjects to talk about. Like so many people, like are divided. Aside from the fact that you could cheer on two different football teams, right? that's
Yeah.
another that's another thing. But it's not going to be easy for somebody to just back down, especially if they have very strong convictions.
Mhm.
If you're saying, like, if somebody is really very stubborn with their belief system, and they get all passionate and they get all, not really violent, but like they're a lot more expressive about this. Now, how do you handle emotional turmoils that surround that?
Well, the thing that I found for myself is if I come from a standpoint of I care about that person, and I come from that, like in a case with my wife, when we disagree on something, I actually come from a state of, look, I love you, and I don't want to argue anymore about this. How can we either agree to disagree, or how can I support you, or how can we work together so that we can be on the same page again? And so whenever we come from a point of blame, we're actually creating more of a division between us. But when we come from a point of, Furley, I care about you, and I see that you're very passionate about, this political candidate or this issue. And so, I mean, that's great. I'm glad you have passion about that. But how can we dialogue in such a way that, we can agree to disagree and support one another in that? And that's where I had to come from the standpoint of, my wife could not make me happy. Happiness comes from within me. And that's where a lot of marriages are struggling, and that's why divorce becomes so prevalent. Is you get a couple of years into your marriage and you realize you start having issues in your relationship or in your life, and you begin to blame your spouse rather than looking at the point of, it's you that needs to make yourself happy. No one's ever going to make you happy. And if you depend on that, it's going to be up and down all the rest of your life.
Yeah,
But you
because you
have the
depend on
power.
somebody else to make you happy, and that's not the way it should be. You should be happy within yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for myself in my marriages. I had to look at my own life, and I had to go, look, it's not my wife's fault that I feel this way. It's not my wife's fault that I'm having problems at work. It's not my wife's fault. And so how can I change that within me so that I can be okay with my wife? I don't need to blame her. I need to take responsibility. And it's inner work that we all have to do to get to that point.
You know, obviously you're a man, and so the alpha syndrome, like, what I say goes, like, I'm the head of the family, I should be the one making the decisions and all that. Now, how do you, because you seem to be able to speak so lovingly and compassionately, how can you reframe somebody's way of thinking into becoming a lot more understanding when they're so used to doing things a certain way?
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's kind of tapping into what, that you care about them, and I respect you that, you want to be the head of our household, right? Um, but also when you said I do, we were we vowed to love, honor, and cherish one another, and that means we're a team. So, and I understand that your father, or I mean, because again, we go back to the background and the models that we have that we live by. I understand that you want to be the head of the household, and I love you for that. I love your leadership. I love your passion. But this is a team, and it's not just you. And if we have kids, it's you, me, and it's our kids, that we all need to work together so that our family becomes, a unit that we can relate. We can talk about anything. There's no subject that's not we're able to talk about. I mean, I adopted my son, who was my nephew, at 6 years old, and we told him from the age that he was 6 years old, there's nothing that you can come to us and tell us that's going to upset us. And then when he was a teenager, we said, hey, listen, if you get a girl pregnant, you can come to us and talk to us. I don't want you to hide anything from us. And when you keep that door open, and the same thing with your spouse, if you tell your spouse, hey, if you're struggling, I love you. I want to know what you're struggling about. I don't want you to hide it from me. And I know it may seem like you're sharing your feelings and that's something weak, but I don't see it that way. I
Yes.
see it as, you are, and you want to be a husband that loves his family, and so again, it coming from that place of love, you can break down those walls where it's like, I'm the leader and I say what goes kind of thing.
It's very interesting. I'm smiling as I'm listening to you because there's a couple of things that's running through my head. One of them is a quote that I saw, that if you are in a marriage and you blame one another, it's almost like you're saying that you're on the same boat, but you're saying your side of the boat is sinking.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we are in the same team. And also, I'm smiling because I said, like, even on my own personal perspective, I actually have grown, because I remember before not being able to communicate. When I am upset, I would actually just retreat to a corner and just cry my heart out, and then deal with it later. But my what I love about my spouse is that she comes to me and says, like, what is it that why are you taking this position, help me understand why you feel this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say I need my space first, and then we talk about it later. But yes, we talk about it, but
Yeah.
it does not happen organically that we
No.
grow into this mature human beings, because there's the kid and egotistical people in us that oftentimes wants to scream, like, you're not listening to me. Now, men and women are wired very differently, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Men are from Mars. What's that? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
That's right.
Okay, now explain to us now. Men are wired differently because you want to just fix problems, and
Yes.
women want to be heard. Okay, so now how do we create a more like complementary and harmonious relationship when people are wired differently?
Well, it reminds me of a funny story. Like we would my wife and I would go to bed, and she would tell me about the things that she was struggling with. And like you said, I would try to fix it. I could fix that. You just need to stop thinking that way, or you need to do this. And she basically told me, she said, I don't want you to fix anything. I just want you to hold me and tell me it's going to be okay. And
Hmm.
so when we come from fixing or changing does not work. When we come from a standpoint of understanding and asking them, I support you in this, and I know you're in a lot of pain right now, but I love you anyway. And how can I support you? How can I, help you get through this? I'm here for you. And that's more than, our spouse wants to hear that more than anything else, is that they have that person that's there for them. And one of the ways I keep that alive is I watch my wedding video twice a year.
Wow, I love that.
And
That's a beautiful tip.
I remember why I fell in love with my wife.
So do you still have that VHS?
Well,
Or
I was very fortunate. I had a friend of mine, the best man's father. He spent an hour going around during our reception and asking all of our family and friends 5 different questions about our future as a marriage, whether it would last, where we would live, how many kids we would have. And so watching that, you get to see the responses, and it keeps everything alive. And that's what I love about it.
Actually, that's a great tip for people who are getting married, because I get it. People get to predict. Did anybody say that you will not last?
Well, my sister said, she goes, "Do you think it'll work?" And they said, "Well, it's going to take work." But they said, "Do you have any advice?" And she said, "Well, they already did it." Because
Well,
she had marriage problems. So
actually, I have like a very juicy topic that I want to ask you about, and that is being on social media, reconnecting with exes, for example, even if they're just platonic. How is that putting a stress on people's marriage?
well, if you're connecting with your spouse on social media, or your ex on social media, and your wife asks you to stop, you need to stop, because all you're really doing is dragging up the past, and you're creating a tension in your wife that there's still something there with your ex. And
Mm.
I'm in several different marriage groups where I dialogue with people on that, and it's like, I just basically tell them, if you care, if you love your wife, stop, because all you're doing is opening a back door to sabotage your marriage, and you're keeping that relationship alive with your ex and creating tension with your wife. You're building one and destroying the other.
Mm. So there's got to be some kind of boundaries and
Yeah,
rules when it comes to that.
yeah.
Now, I see a lot of marriages right now. Say, for example, uh, as we get more seasoned in age, so to speak, right? Especially the men, they end up like having this wandering eye. They start to flirt, and then it sometimes ends into in a divorce, and that's very, very sad. What would you say about men going through midlife crisis, for instance, and that they have to, prove that they're still attractive and sexy and desirable?
Well, the start of midlife crisis ends up being, we start focusing so much on ourselves and our happiness and what we have or haven't achieved, and we kind of push our spouse out of that space, and we kind of go into our own head, and we begin to think about, gosh, I haven't done this in my life, I haven't done that in my life. But if you would think about including your spouse in those things that you still want to do, your spouse may support you in that. But when you go into your own little bubble and you think, I need this Corvette to make me happy, or I don't feel sexy anymore, what you need the way to feel sexy again is you get back with your wife and you start dating again. You start doing the things that you did when you first met that made you fall in love. And that's what happens, is life gets in the way, and we stop doing those things that attracted us to one another, and we make it all about the kids or life or stress, and we stop doing the things we did why we fell in love.
I love that. So far you have shared, watch your wedding video at least 2 times a year, and
Yeah.
then keep doing date nights, and continue to do what you used to do, so you can keep the spark going. Now, my question to you is, like, if you are in a business together
Mhm.
and you get on each other's throat because you don't believe in the same strategy, for instance, and you don't agree with the budget, how do you separate being business partners from being life partners?
So, well, like I said, my wife and I had been in business we had our own business that we ran for 2 years together, and there was stress there. But the best thing that you can do is if it's financial stress or business strategy, then you agree to hire a coach or find a third party that's going to come in and support you in what you're going to do, because it's really about education. Like we had a business for 2 years and we lost it and $250,000
Wow.
because we had no business experience. And we were looking for people. The people that we were mentoring us, we kind of got abandoned, and so but that's another story. But what worked for us was it's understanding each other's strengths, but you're never isolating your partner from what's happening in the finances of the business. It needs to be a joint time where you're meeting regularly about your finances and you're setting goals. No matter how much debt you may have, you keep those goals of being out of debt, owning a home, whatever it may be that inspires you to keep going. If you keep those things together, and again, you've got to remember, you're a team. It doesn't matter whether you're working together or not, you're still a team. And
I love what you said about hiring a business coach, because having that third party who can actually tell you in a more objective way so that the emotions get out of the way, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah, because it's the emotions, and like you can't help but sometimes take it personally, right?
yeah,
And so having a business coach who can tell you things as they are,
yeah.
and as it relates to your business, so that is actually a very, very wise advice. Now, with the pandemic that we're going through right now, in your so is this your main business right now, relationship coaching?
It's a business I'm transitioning to. I've been in technology for 30 years, and so I'm transitioning out of that because I want to be able to make a bigger difference in people's lives and be more in control of my time as I'm getting up in age,
Hmm.
but still make a difference in people's lives. And so that's why the top talent last year, I was in the middle of figuring out what type of coach I wanted to be. And then through David's event and then the different classes I've taken with him, I've learned how to hone down what I would really make the biggest impact at. And so that's what's really inspired me to take on this part of it, because I want to take what I learned in my own marriage to really save it. I want to inspire other people to take the tools that I'm able to give them and basically help themselves and save their own marriage.
Beautiful. I actually find that extremely meaningful, and quite frankly very relevant, because right now it does not have to be going through a pandemic, but you
Right.
know normal marriage and relationships, it's not easy. I remember even my daughter before, when she was barely, like, I think she was just like maybe 5 or 6 years old, and then I remember her asking me, "Mom, your parents were separated. In the Philippines, there's no such thing as divorce."
Yeah.
And then, of course, my ex-husband and I also have divorced. And he said, like, does that mean it's going to happen to me? And I said to her, marriage takes work.
Yeah.
You have to put your heart in it, and you have to continue to nurture the relationship. But I want you to understand that if it does not work anymore, I want you to know that you have a choice.
Yeah.
But that was what I left her with. But
Yeah.
you're right. It takes a lot of effort, because if you want to grow old together, you're going to have very, very different, big differences. And quite frankly, what you're doing would help so many people, because when we are in a happier, more harmonious relationship, we can function better in business and in our careers,
Yeah.
rather than get stressed and get so worked up emotionally. So that is absolutely beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
what kind of coaching programs do you have right now in place that could help many couples who may be struggling with their relationships?
So I'm launching a workshop, basically a weekly meeting for groups for a pod of 10 people. So I'm looking to get three pods set up where we can go through the tools that I have, and then they begin to build their own support system so that they can be support for one another in whatever they're going through. And I'll actually be there to support the group and one another. But the goal is to create, kind of create a self-sufficient group so that they can actually empower one another and help one another when they're having challenges. because even in my computer repair business, I try to make all my clients self-sufficient, and so I want to give them tools so that if they are struggling at some point, they can call me or contact me. But the main thing is that they can take these tools and apply them in their own lives and solve their own problems.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I am a coach myself, like a life coach, but I often say that I would love for you to grow your wings and fly on your own, because I don't want to be
Yeah.
there all the time, because you want them to be able, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise you don't want to enable them. You
Right.
want to
Right.
be able to give them, just like what you said, the right tools for them to be able to do it independently,
Yes.
be able to actually even spread it. Because I love what you said. Did you say a pod, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, you're creating mini pods in there, and so they'll be able to exponentially spread that positive message that you have, and that is absolutely powerful. Now,
Yes.
if they would like to be part of that pod, how do they get in touch with you?
They can actually go to my website, which is mentalktoyourwoman.com.
Oh, I like
Um,
it. Men. Okay, men, talk to your woman.
yeah, mentalktoyourwoman.com, and fill out a contact form. And there's also a link to Calendly on my Facebook page, Men Mike Stewart Coaching, and they can contact me either way there, and I'd be happy to give them tools. My goal is on the first meeting is to give them tools to apply right away.
Now, what you said, men talk to your women. Do you only work with men?
No, that was kind of, I was very frustrated about a business name, and that was kind of a download that came to me, um, because it was from my own perspective of I'm watching, I've interviewed several couples when I was going through some training, and it was constantly my women that I talked to would go, my husband won't talk to me. He doesn't share his feelings with me, and so I kind of just got to the point of, it's like, men, talk to your woman, talk to your wife, share your feelings with her. She's longing for you to do it.
You're going to laugh at this, Mike, because when I was studying to be certified as a life coach, I remember I ended up working with four men. Obviously, they're all married, and they all went into this life coaching program, but they did not tell their wives about.
Okay.
Okay, obviously, like, there's several thousands of dollars involved in investing, but they did
Yeah.
not tell them about it yet. So I ended up coaching them, and it was just the most hilarious thing when I was doing the role playing with them. So pretend that I am your wife. How are you going to say it? And it was just so funny, because I would give them the attitude,
Yeah.
and they're just like, "Oh my God, that's exactly how my wife would say it." But the whole beautiful thing about it is that, like, by the time I was done um, coaching with them, they were better husbands, because they understood how the wives receive
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like, and it's different also when you have a man that knows and understands how women receive. It's so I love the fact that you can say it and teach them from a man's perspective, and somebody like me could even also show it to them, that this is how a woman feels, and like pretend that I am your wife, and then so it's almost like I'm a surrogate wife,
Yeah.
listening to them. So that is absolutely phenomenal what you're doing. Is your wife involved in coaching as well?
Not at this time, no.
Yeah, but I bet you she has a lot to say, and with this, because it would be interesting also to hear her perspective about it. Now, would I be seeing you at Top Talent JV event next week, Monday,
Yes,
Tuesday?
I'll be there on Monday and Tuesday. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So for those people that, like, if you believe that you have a product or service that you believe will actually begin to change lives, this is, the Top Talent JV event is actually a beautiful place to connect with people who are like-minded, that may be able to support your goals and your dreams. People, you will be very surprised. Like, look at, Mike and I actually just got to talk in length right now, and we found some ways that we can even collaborate and connect, and bring more value to other people's lives, right?
Yeah.
So, so if you're interested in being a part of this, private message Mike or me, and we can send you, because it is only by invitation, and that will be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's August 16, 17, and 18,
Yeah.
2021. Because when we have this on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2025, and it's like, oh, but Furley said that there's going to be on August 16th. So anyway, so any last words that you would like to share to actually begin to ignite the magic into a vibrant marriage?
Yeah. So the first thing would be to own your part in where you are right now. Go to your spouse and say, I want to own my part in why we're feeling disconnected, and just share with them that, these are the things that I've been doing, and I don't want to do that anymore. That would be the first thing. The second thing would be, realize when you think of your spouse, are you thinking positive thoughts or negative thoughts about them? And if so, begin to practice substituting those negative thoughts with why you fell in love with your wife. What's your favorite place to have dinner with her? What was your favorite date? What did you love about your wedding? And you begin to practice that, because our unconscious mind wants to remember that pattern. And so if we constantly have a negative thought, that pattern is going to repeat itself. But when we begin to replace that, we practice doing that, pretty soon the positive habit becomes prevalent, and that's the new behavior.
Yeah. Actually, I have one last question. How many times do you hear people say, like, you're no longer the woman I married, or you're no longer the man I married? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because they've developed a constant negative thing about their spouse. Like, I'll give you an example. I used to come home from work like 2 years after we were married, and for some reason my wife didn't clean the house, right? And so I would come home and I'd go, I worked all day and she didn't clean the house. But then when I sat down with her and I realized, I asked her the question, hey, what happened? You were going to pick up the living room or whatever it was. And she said, well, I had to deal with the sun. This happened. The sink overflowed. I mean, and then I was able to understand. But a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just take that little message and we'll store that. And when we keep storing that, when we think of our spouse, all we can think about is all the negative things that they do or don't do. And so when we begin to reframe that, we actually begin to look at our wife and realize, I love my wife. I married her, for who she is, and I want to live to her until death do us part. I
That's
want to have a marriage where we're just together. We're just creating this beautiful thing for our future.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom. I love it. So go back and look for your wedding video, watch it again, and then, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why you married your spouse. And so look back on those and, bring back, show appreciation, bring that romance back. And, remember, you are on the same team, right?
Yes.
On the same thing, and learn to speak to each other lovingly, respectfully, and also openly. So, Mike, it was such a pleasure. Men, talk to your women, right?
mentalktoyourwoman.com.
Woman, right?
Yeah.
Men, talk to your woman, and so send him a message, and so you can be part of the pod. And if this is something that is you've been struggling with your relationship, this could be your wake up call. All right, this is Furley Almonte, your host for Faces of Resilience Top Talent JV edition. Thank you so very much, Mike, for sharing your wonderful insights, and I hope that you will continue to ignite the light in many marriages. Take care
Thank you.
now.
Thank you,
Okay,
Furley.
bye bye.
Bye bye.